Hello friends, I am pleased to share with you that a new edition of The Color of the Wind has just been published in hardcover with full-color illustrations. I am also introducing its companion, Where Rivers Learn to Dance, Fables of Awakening and Compassion. A return to Scribbles the Frog, Burleychest the Bear, Pipsqueak, Longtail, Cass, and a few new faces with the same blend of humor, heart, and earthwise spirit that began this journey. When I first wrote The Color of the Wind, I wanted a place where the absurd and the wise could sit on the same log and trade stories. So I invited a frog who thinks a little too well of silence, Scribbles, and a bear who treats honey like high theology, Burleychest, and a rebel gerbil named Pipsqueak who insists on keeping the world's overdue library card. I gave Longtail a tail that was spectacularly inconvenient to him, and Cass, the single-wattled cassowary, a talent for falling into the dramatic. And yes, I added the hairless monkeys, the caricature of our hurried, distracted species, so the animals would have someone to blame and eventually someone to forgive. Those creatures let me ask the questions many of us are asking now. How loud can we be before we stop hearing the planet? What does it mean to remember when the trees have been keeping the books longer than we have? How do we practice compassion in small acts, listening, returning what we've taken, standing guard for someone else's sweetness? The original book found its voice in humor first. Laughter is the easiest door into a lesson, and I like to imagine that wisdom prefers to arrive wearing a hat. But the humor was always a handrail towards something quieter, the spiritual center of things. These stories are not sermons. They are invitations. They ask us to sit a little longer with what we think is funny and notice what the laughter is covering or revealing. They make space for sorrow, for repair, and for that gentle, relentless hope that says we can do better. Alongside the laughter, the animals offer perspective on human impact. The snoring sky after our engines, the ocean that remembers every voice, the hive that needs guarding more than taking. The fables point to harm honestly. Plastic where fish once danced. Trees scored by forgetful hands, but they also look for the human heart's capacity to change. That matters to me. These books refuse despair without refusing to notice the damage. This new edition of The Color of the Wind arrives with fresh touches. The same mischief and tenderness you remember, made easy to rediscover in a late-night read, at a children's story hour, or shared between friends. It's the book you can laugh at, hand to a child, hand to a neighbor, or tuck into a drawer as a reminder that small acts of care stack up. And now the sequel, Where Rivers Learn to Dance. If the first book was a map of questions, this new collection is a set of small, hopeful instructions. It gathers 8 new fables, because the world kept handing me stories. You'll find scribbles again, learning how to listen beneath a snoring sky. Longtail returns, humbled and comic, discovering what real length means. Pipsqueak becomes, impossibly, a librarian of leaves. Birdie Chest is adopted by a beehive that wins him into service rather than indulgence. Cass learns the joy of dancing instead of proving. A whale gathers the ocean's echoes and refuses to let lost voices vanish. A mirror tree shows not just faces, but choices. And there's a story where the wind remembers its feathers, literally and metaphorically, because a community braids them back together. These stories are longer because the world asks for more room now. They are zanier in places. I have a fondness for improbable choreography, and quieter in others, because some truths take a longer breath. If you know the characters, you'll enjoy watching them make mistakes, repair things, and invent new ways of belonging. If you're new to them, you'll meet a cast that's funny for all ages, and I hope stubbornly kind. What I hope any reader takes away, parent, teacher, tender-hearted curmudgeon, or child, is a simple practice. Listen more than you speak. Repair what you can. Show up when you're needed. These books argue that compassion is the daily work of waking up. Being awake isn't a state, it's a habit. And habits are learned in small, repeated kindnesses. A few practical notes. The editions are illustrated in soft watercolor. Think of our frog on his mossy stone, squinting at the horizon. They're designed to be read aloud. They make good gifts. They make better excuses for conversations over tea. I wrote these books because stories help us remember what matters. Animals can sometimes be better messengers than people who never learn to listen. And the world makes more sense to me when it's narrated by a frog with a propensity for peace and a bear learning to stand guard. Thank you for listening, for giving these creatures a place on your shelf and in your heart. And I ask you to join me in the simplest practice these stories ask of us: to wake, to care, and to learn how to dance again together.